7th of July 2025, opening up our meeting at 6 p.m. here at the Kalgoorlie Town Hall. And this week being NAIDOC week, as with all meetings, we'll continue on our acknowledgement of country. On behalf of the City of Kalgoorlie-Boulder, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we meet today, and I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I'll read the disclaimer to those who are present, noting that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on the Council's website in accordance with the City's public participation in Council meeting policy, which can be viewed on Council's website. All reasonable care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is assumed your consent is given if your image is broadcast. The recommendations contained in this agenda are officers' recommendations only and should not be acted upon until Council has resolved to adopt those recommendations. The resolutions of Council should be confirmed by perusing the minutes of the Council meeting in which these recommendations were considered. Members of the public should also note that they act at their own risk if they enact any resolution prior to receiving official written notification of Council's decision. In attendance tonight, we welcome back the Deputy Mayor. Good to have you back, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Johnson, hello. Councillor Turner, good evening to you. And Councillor Viskovich also returning. Mr CEO, hello to you joining us tonight, alongside Francis Liston, our Director of Governance and Organisational Strategy, Director of Advocacy and Strategy, Mayor Hicks. Melissa Murphy is our Director of City and Community. Director of Corporate and Commercial is Cass Yeager. Director of Engineering, Louis Camporelli, and Manager of Finance, Casey Radford. We're joined by a star or a suite of stars behind the scenes to assist tonight. Our Coordinator of IT, Riley, our IT Cybersecurity Analyst, Matthew, our Coordinator of Governance, Susie, and our Governance Officer, Jamie. Good evening to our team over there. Also, our visitors tonight, we have Neil in the gallery, but we have one member of the press. We have apologies from Councillor Brownlee and also Councillor Bodicar. There are no apologies from members of staff, Mr CEO. We have no leave of absence. Public access and public question time, there is nil tonight. There's no petitions, deputations and presentations. Councillors, I haven't received any interest. Is there any interest in tonight? Noting the impartiality, financial or proximity interest is where I discussed that. No leave of absence and no urgent business approved by the person presiding. Councillors, we have item 9, our one item on tonight's special council meeting agenda, our reports of officers, the 25-26 differential rate submissions. Councillors, we are asked to consider. Is there a mover for the officer recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. The seconder, Councillor Turner. Councillor Viskovich, wish to speak? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wanted to begin by saying that I understand that the proposed rates increase is difficult, particularly for families who are already feeling the pressure of rising living costs. We've all heard from residents who are doing it tough and read the submissions, and I want to acknowledge everyone's concerns. People often compare our council rates to places like Perth and think ours are much higher. But what a lot of people don't understand is through Kalgoorlie-Boulder's council, rates are also including sewage, waste and drainage as part of our Kalgoorlie-Boulder council rates. In Perth, some of those services are actually charged through the Water Corporation rates. So whilst our rates might look higher, they're actually covering more and our water bills are essentially cheaper because of it. We've also made sure that payment options are available to help, and I'd encourage anyone struggling to reach out early. This council is here to support, not to punish. The reality is, just like our residents, the city is also facing rising costs, materials, wages, insurance, compliance, and increasing community expectations. We want clean streets, safe infrastructure, thriving community events, and responsive services. These all come at a cost, and if we freeze or underfund our revenue, it's not long before these services and infrastructure quality begin to suffer. This increase isn't an increase just for the sake of it. It's about maintaining what we have and doing it properly. It's about meeting the rising cost of service delivery without cutting corners or letting our standards slip. As councillors, we have a responsibility to ensure our town remains a great place to live, not just today, but for the years ahead. That means facing hard decisions with honesty and foresight. I believe this increase is responsible and necessary, and I support not because I want to ask more from our residents, but because I want to ensure that they continue to receive high quality services and amenities that they deserve. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. Councillor Turner?
So firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Viskovich for moving the motion. Increasing any council fees and charges is always something that any councillor around the table will grapple with, and they'll find it hard, because we too, all of us are ratepayers in the city as well. The problem we have here is that council is not immune, as Councillor Viskovich stated, to rising costs. So for every resident that faces an increase in power costs, the city faces that too, over multiple locations and premises that we operate. For every resident that faces an increase in insurance costs, the city faces those as well. For every resident that faces increase in maybe their vehicle licences, we heard last week that vehicles are going to be a minimum of $1,000 to licence in WA. Can you imagine how many vehicles the council has? So we, unfortunately, are not immune to rising costs. When I undertook my councillor training at Walga, we did a section on rates, and it was eye-opening to find out when councillors amend officers' recommendations for rates that affect budgets, the long-term ramifications that can have over 10 years by simply adjusting it by 0.5% or 1% lower. This is compounded every year for the next 10 to 20 years that you haven't done that. And there was councillors, they had their hands in their heads from some of the local governments saying, oh my God, I ran on a platform of never raising rates, and now I realise the ramifications that in the modern world that's not possible. I feel that we've kept the rate as low, the increase as low as we can. I do sympathise with residents that face the increase. I would like them to note that when they do get their annual rates, to have a look at the emergency service levy. We're just a collector for that for the state government. That has increased significantly over the last several years. Go back 3 or 4 years and see what your emergency service levy is. So when you're looking at your rates, that's an increase that we just collect that for the state government. So you need to take that into consideration as well. We've got a budget. We have got a lot of work that we're trying to do. We've got ambitious road programs, footpath programs, curving. We've got ambitions to do a lot of things around the city, and unfortunately, none of that is free to do.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Speaker against? Councillor Winner, you wish to speak against? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. While I understand and acknowledge the officer's report into this item, and while I'm speaking against it, I'm not saying that I'm against what is being proposed. However, at this point in time, I'm also not in support of it, as I would much rather see the budget before settling on a rate. We don't know if the proposed rate is too high or too low. I acknowledge that CPI would take up 2.8% of the proposed 3.3%, not leaving a lot to actually add services, funding options, or put towards projects. I simply feel that at this point in time, we need to know what the budget looks like before accepting any rate. I'd like to thank those who took the time to lodge submissions to the city regarding this item, but at this point in time, I won't be in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winner. Speaker for? Speaker against? Before the mover has the right of reply. This is a formality, councillors. It is to instruct our CEO to proceed with the preparation of the 25-26 budget with the rate that we've already approved to look at. I think it's been highlighted that of the submissions that were put forward, obviously they're of confidential in nature, but there's common themes, one of those being cost of living. We as an organisation face cost of living charges as well, such as utility increases, construction increases and more that also affect people's businesses. If we were a business, we would not hesitate to put rates up. We know that our ratepayers are not being treated as clients. We know that we are doing the best we can for our ratepayers who are struggling at this point in time. We've been as tight as we can in this particular instance. However, it is unfortunate that that does play out, that we do have a 3.3% increase. However, overall we get 5.01% from an overall rate yield, which is obviously commendable to the fact that we've got development happening in our city. As we move forward, last year we obviously had a revaluation year, so many people were affected with a rate increase. The rate increase this year at 3.3% is in line with probably being one of the lowest in regional Western Australia. Something that is very considered, considering that regional Western Australia faces more challenges and more hurdles to deliver projects in local government than what they do in the metro area. Mover has the right of reply.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand Councillor Winner's concerned, and I do agree without knowing an exact fixed cost, it is difficult to make a decision. However, we all know that costs can change from times when the budget is set to when the project occurs or actually completes. As Councillor Turner mentioned, we have a very ambitious budget with so many amazing projects. I personally don't want to see our rates increased any more than what we are proposing. And if that means that budget needs to change, then we can work with it once we have the budget from next month. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Viskovich. As there has been dissent recorded, councillors will ask for a vote. Those in favour of the officer recommendation, moved by Councillor Viskovich, second by Councillor Turner, please raise your hand. 4. Those against? 1. 5-1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, my numbers are not correct this evening. The vote is carried 5-1. Just to reiterate, 4 was 5. There are no confidential items this evening. With that being the only item on tonight's agenda, I'll close tonight's meeting at 6:11 p.m. and thank you for your attendance. Thank you.